Welcome to the Dirt Court Jesters podcast, your home for dirt track racing across the country and just as important, right here in our backyard. Coming to you from the great state of Ohio, this is Josh with the Dirt Court Jesters. In episode 7, we're going to talk about dust, suspensions, and black sunshine. Before we get into that, just wanted to let those folks in eastern Indiana all the way through to central Ohio know that we're thinking of them regarding the horrible storms and tornadoes that touched down in various communities last week. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with y'all. Now I hope you guys are ready to get dirty. This week in dirt track racing, we're going to go back to March 24th of 2002 when the World of Outlaws visited Houston Raceway Park in Texas. Mark Kinzer would get the win, followed by Donnie Schatz and Danny Lasowski rounding out the podium. I want to give a shout out to Victory Fuel, from Throttle Punch to Lucky Lemon. Both flavors are dynamite, 12 packs and 4 packs, and even some cool merchandise as well. Go to drinkvictory.com and use the code Jesters10 at checkout to save. drinkvictory.com and use the code Jesters10 at checkout to save. Recapping the previous race week, March 15th, the World of Outlaws sprint cars at Cotton Bowl. Brett Marks comes away with the win, Carson Macedo in second, Gio Scelzi in third. Wild race. Gio gets 2 right tires up on the wall on the backstretch early in the race and is still able to finish in the top 3. Surprised he didn't break anything. Glad he didn't break anything or get upside down there. Way to finish the race, Gio. Schatz, Gravel, and Sam Haferteef get tangled up too. So rough night for those guys. Brent Marks wins, Carson Macedo in second, Gio Scelzi in third. The Extreme Midgets at DeCoin indoors. Your winners, T-Mez, followed by Gavin Miller and Zach Dahm. And it should be noted in that race, Ryan Timms throws a slider on Tyler Edwards in 2. And then going back into 3 and 4, Edwards comes up to Timms with a run and literally runs over, ends up on top of Tim's car. Also, Shane Cottle coming to the line, flips, still finishes 4th, but rough ride there at the end for the throttle Shane Cottle. Attica Raceway Park was supposed to run on the 15th, but no luck there. Rained out. Obviously, you guys are aware of the weather here in Ohio. Moving on to March 16th, the World of Outlaws again at Cotton Bowl. And guess what? Hot Sauce Giovanni Scelzi with the victory. Brett Marks in second, Donnie Schatz in third. Good recovery there. Not only does Gio win, but also maintains his points lead in the World of Outlaws, heading to Big O Speedway next Friday. Florence Speedway in Kentucky, they'd run the Northern All-Star Late Model Dirt Series and the 48th Annual Spring 50, and coming away with the win, Ricky Thornton Jr., followed by Mike Marlar and Josh Rice in third. Hunt the Front, Talladega Short Track, Brandon Overton with the win, Corey Hedgecock in second, and rounding out the podium, Chris Ferguson. The Short Track Super Series Big Block Modifieds at Port Royal for $50,000 to win. And to nobody's surprise, it's Super Matt Shepard getting the victory. Billy Decker finishes second from 24th. Way to drive, Billy Decker. And rounding out the podium, Loudon Rimmert. The Extreme Midgets again indoors at DeCoin. Cannon McIntosh with the win. Ryan Timms follows in second. And Zach Dahm rounds out the podium. The Fast Series gets underway at Pittsburgh, PA Speedway in Pennsylvania. Big car count for them there. And it kind of showed 30 cars for the Fast Series. Great car count. Weather was pretty solid, but it was dusty. I don't know what to make of it. Trey Jacobs shared his thoughts, and it looked like he kind of came around towards the end, as far as the track was concerned. But man, was it dusty. Trey Jacobs would end up sharing a picture the day after from SprintCarNews.com, which showed how dusty it was. So dusty, in fact, that it even made Limeland cringe. Sounds like the track started to come around, like I said, around in the feature, and that's a good thing because I know there were a lot of things kind of up in the air. It seemed like for the heat races, and they kind of extended that out. Something that started earlier in the day ended up late into the night. So that's unfortunate. First race of the season. Hopefully, Pittsburgh PA Speedway gets it under control. We've seen this, and this isn't anything new, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. Just track prep, trying to figure that out and find that sweet spot. Takes a lot of work, a lot of help, and a good knowledge to understand that. So first race of the season, Pittsburgh PA Speedway, they're gonna get it fixed. Tim Schaefer comes away with the win. Danny Sims in second, and Cy Lynch rounding out the podium.
Let me talk to you.
This week's talking points, a lot going on. We're going to start with the Hunt the Front series. 20 drivers are going to run the tour, and the last one to add to that was Scott Bloomquist. So 25 races for 20 drivers in the Hunt the Front series tour. $50,000 goes to the champion. Good to see Bloomquist back with the tour. Banged up last year, must be getting a little bit better, so he's hopping on the 25 race tour. And on that note of healing up, Trey Osborne seems to be getting better after his rough ride at Ocala. Sounds like he'll be back in late March or early April. If that's the case, he's not going to miss any USAC races, so that's awesome. Glad to hear Trey's getting better. Baps, Lincoln, Port Royal, and Williams Grove are going to go ahead and adopt the 1-inch Wickerbill rule for the 410 sprint cars to align with the National Series. That brought into some comments of various things, but Danny Dietrich's a big fan of the 1-inch Wickerbill rule. He'd be quoted as saying that should ultimately make for better racing, less rubber down tracks, less tire wear, and less wear and tear on our engines. So that's a good thing, and drivers' teams can save some money. Don't want to go to the track and tear up a bunch of tires or motors, things of that effect. So if it works out that way, fantastic. I think it's still early in the season, trying to figure that stuff out. Danny Dietrich was on one last week, as he usually is, from streaming to promoting races and cost, kind of a back and forth between Danny and Zach Hampton. And I think that I determined by the end of it that neither of them had 0 francs to give. Good back and forth. Not surprised by either of those guys. Rich Farmer on Ohio Dirt Track Podcast would say that most people complaining about the 3-inch worker bill usually start up front. So, interesting comment there. I don't think we've really got an answer to this yet. I mean, Outlaws were at Cotton Bowl last week, and the 1-inch seemed to do a good job, real racy. But I think if you look back to Volusia, I think there were some people commenting that the 1-inch wasn't doing what they had hoped. So it's early, guys. We don't know yet. I think it's still in flux, and I almost wonder, the thought comes to mind to me is, if you remember last week's episode, we talked about NASCAR and spoilers and how they change the sizes depending on the track. And I wonder if we need to have Wickerbill rules based on track size. So I don't know if maybe you run a 1-inch at the smaller tracks and a 2-inch, or I don't know what the 3 is going to do, but perhaps you run a taller Wickerbill at the bigger tracks. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a sprint car mechanic. I'm not a sprint car driver. I'm just a fan, like I've told you guys. But I think that would be kind of curious to see, if we run this all season and we have a lot of data to look back, what the outcome will be. I mean, maybe we get to that where, based on track size, maybe you run a different size wicker bill, and maybe that's going to be the rule, and maybe that will help. I don't know if that's a solution, but if it makes for better racing and those guys, the teams and drivers, aren't tearing up their cars, I think that's what we're looking for. So, as usual, the wicker bill conversation is not going to go away anytime soon. So we'll just have to stay on top of that. Moving on to Gas City, a quarter mile track without walls between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. Seems like Gas City is up in the air. Looking back, the last 10 years for Gas City have been kind of up and down. We know Jerry Gaffins was leasing and promoting the Speedway before he left for Eldora. Then 2023 on Larry Booz, Gas City went away from weekly action. Larry's no longer there. And this coming season, it appears that they'll run a lot less, if at all. It seems to be a question right now. They've got 4 races scheduled, 2 with GLSS, Indiana Sprint Week, and the James Dean Classic. I certainly hope that those at least stay and they can kind of get some things ironed out. If you can't run every week, at least, have some shows. It just, it's concerning. So, and looking into Gas City, I also noticed Montpelier doesn't have a 2024 schedule posted this time. So, something to keep an eye on in that Northeast Indiana area. We don't want to lose tracks. We've gained a couple tracks back, and we got Millstream coming back, and we had Jackson County that we talked about in Ohio coming back. The last thing we want is to lose any tracks, so hopefully they can get that stuff ironed out. The next stop is going to have to be suspensions. Bobby Pierce, Deb Moran, Kyle Bronson suspended and fined for failed tire test. Crazy late model season's starting, and you guys know that wasn't the only crazy thing to come out. Brian Carter kind of trying to stay out in front of this, which I applaud. I mean, usually that's not what we see. So seeing him out and about and talking to folks about this was interesting, and it was welcome in my opinion. He would get on with Kenny Wallace, who we all know Kenny. He's a cool guy, but Kenny also don't care. He's going to ask you the questions whether you want to hear him or not. So, um, Brian would mention that he knows people are walking through the pits selling the stuff that causes failed tire test. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we know they're there, why that's allowed. I mean, I guess you can't. Could you not tell them to be there? I don't. I don't know how that would work for those series and tracks. What legality would be involved in that, but it's kind of odd that is. I guess they're there. We know we don't want them there because of what they're doing, but we were allowing it, so that's interesting. And Ryan Carter would also note that they test their lab and other labs as well. Samples are taken from tires from 3 different spots. Samples are placed in a bag and marked with a number. So when the lab gets these, they're getting a number. They don't know who the driver is. They don't know who the team is. They don't know anything. They're just testing the tire samples that they received. So, and as most people probably know at this point, they've tested 67 tires, and 3 were bad, which led to the suspensions. And one of the tires that was bad was from qualifying, was not from a feature. So it's interesting to see that. And there's going to be back and forth on this. Not everybody's going to agree on it, and I mean, teams and drivers may feel, and justifiably so, that they didn't do anything wrong. I don't know. I wasn't there, but this goes back to the last time we talked about this, as far as how are you going to oversee this, because obviously nobody wants it done. Everybody wants to be on an even playing field, as even could be within the rules, right? So how are you going to stay on top of this and police this, if you will? Um, it's like the Wicker Bell thing. This is going to be something that's just progressing, and the series and tracks are going to have to work together to try and figure out how they can try to stay on top of this to prevent it. Because I know the last thing is the Outlaws who don't want to come out, especially with the guys involved. uh, You don't want to have to come out and suspend these guys. You don't want to suspend anybody, but especially with you got big hitters in there, guy that won the championship. It's just a tough spot for everybody. So um, we'll just have to see to where that goes. Last week, Dirt Nerds podcast, they discussed the topic that we're all excited about: Millstream Speedway coming back. Obviously, they're running a partial schedule here in 2024. But looking to 2025, if Millstream's going to decide that, hey, we're going to try to run weekly, and Dwayne had a great idea, which he shared with Millstream via X. and that they do a weekly rotating series, if you will. So this is my example. This isn't Dwayne's example. His is a lot better than mine because he knows what he's doing. I don't. I'm just again just a fan here. So first week, perhaps you run 410 wing sprints, and then second week maybe you run midgets, and third week you run late models, and fourth week you run non-wing sprints. So you could set it up like that so those drivers and teams and even series know kind of how it's going to be laid out. So if week one you've got winged 410s there, let's say in the month of April, then week one of May you're going to have winged 410s there, and the same goes for June and July and August. So obviously there'd be support series there, but I think it's interesting to do that. Then those teams aren't getting tied up, every week of the season. I don't know, 20 times. Maybe you're getting tied up 5 times, or maybe you need to run Millstream 5 times instead of 20 times. I don't know how all this shakes out. I think it's a great idea. Lets drivers and teams kind of get around, but still gives you the opportunity to have something new and put out a full time weekly racing schedule. So I think it's a good idea. We'll see what happens with that. Moving on to crazy late model season. Hudson O'Neal out of a ride. I don't know. They've put out a release, and obviously there's been things out and about speculating about what the cause is. It, it's just sprint car season was crazy last year, and late model season's crazy this year, and sprint car season looks like it's going to be crazy because we've got 2 national series and Wicker Bills, and just going to be one of those things. So it gives us something to talk about. So we gotta appreciate that part of it. And we're gonna wrap up the talking points. Zane DeVault has signed with Lane Racing, compete with Fast in 2024. So cool to see Lane Racing and Zane DeVault getting together and joining Fast. We're getting close, folks. We're approaching the end of March, and it won't be long before a lot of, if not every track in Ohio is open for some dirt racing. So excited about that. Excited to get back to the track. And that's going to wrap up our talking points.
I'm the tower of power, too sweet to be sour. I'm funky like a monkey. Sky's the limit and space is the place.
Moving on to local coverage, the GLSS Ohio CAT schedule is out, with Waynesfield and Limaland both appearing 6 times, a single visit to Fremont and Eldora, and Millstream gets 2. Their season starts in April and it'll end in October. And I just got to say, I like to see some sprint car racing going into October here in Ohio. Hopefully, the weather holds out. You don't know what you're going to get. Obviously, we know with Eldora running September regularly with the Four Crown, it could be pretty cold, but there should be weather conducive for some more racing at the beginning of October. So looking forward to that. Millstream still working. They're working this past weekend. My guess is they'll keep working, like we've said before, and we'll say it again. If you get a chance, go to Millstream's Facebook, Millstream Speedway's Facebook. Let them know you can help on the weekend if you can. They typically, it looks like they work from 9 to 2, 9 to 3, 9 to 4, somewhere in there, and they even hook you up with lunch. So if you can give them a hand, give them a hand. Also, camping, as we've touched on before, we'll touch on it again until it's all gone. Kings Royal at Eldora, you've got lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, main lot and silo lot. They're all sold out. There's 7 spots left in the north side camping, 38 spots in the BFE, and looking like they're getting close to 3/4 of the sites at Eldora Village being sold out. I wouldn't wait till July. You may have a little bit of time, but definitely not till July if you're going to camp at the track, especially for the Kings Royal. I'd get there, and on that note, camping for the World 100 at Eldora, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The main lot and the silo lot, they're all sold out. Looks like there's 7 spots left at Northside, 16 spots in BFE, and 13 in Eldora Village. So obviously we know the World 100's in September. It's March. They're not making it until September. So if you want to camp at the track for the World 100, go to EldorSpeedway.com, get your tickets. Also, this past weekend, Fremont Motorsports education classes started to look like they had a great turnout. Anything from setting up a chassis to fuel systems. And I know the driving portion is right around the corner. Also, on that note, I'm looking for sponsors. If anybody would like to sponsor me so I can get in a 305 and rip around, it'd be greatly appreciated. Obviously, I'm kidding, but Fremont Motorsports education classes, very cool what they're doing there. Hopefully, it keeps working out for them. Attica is going to attempt again this weekend coming up to open up their season. 410 305s and late models, and Atomic is going to try for the first time this year with the Lucas Oil late models. So hopefully this weekend, fingers crossed, Ohio Dirt gets underway, and that's going to end our local coverage.
Woo!
Series, teams, drivers, tracks, dirt media. This is your time, and this is your spotlight. Decided to go ahead and add a new portion to the spotlight segment. Every once in a while, we're going to go ahead and touch on big races. Thought came to mind after getting our Kings Royal tickets in the mail. Always like Christmas that day. So the spotlight's on, and this week's spotlight is going to be the Kings Royal. Ohio, in the middle of July, State Route 118 between Greenville and St. Henry. A vast, expansive view of cornfields until you crest the hill and you approach the Mecca known as Eldora Speedway. And that week in July, when sprint car drivers from around the world come to be crowned king at Eldora, in the middle of nowhere, besides cornfields, you've got campers and a load of fans ready to watch sprint car drivers battle for $175,000 to win. Now, the first Kings Royal took place in 1984 for $50,000 to win, and at that time, it was the highest-paying sprint car race in the world. The King, Steve Kinser, would beat Shane Carson and Jack Ottenshield to win the inaugural Kings Royal. And not only that, Steve Kinser would go on to be a 7-time winner of the Kings Royal, and the only driver to win in 4 different decades. They call him the King for a reason, and I'm sure that's part of it. 1993, 1994, and 1995 would be won by drivers from Ohio. Dave Blaney would win 2 of them, and Jack Hodenshield, the wild child, would win 1 of them. Donnie Schatz would win his first of 5 Kings Royal in 2007, and Schatz, 10-time, was the first driver to win back-to-back Kings Royals. But hey, why stop there? Donnie went ahead and made it 3 in a row, 2016, 2017, and 2018. As we all know, in 2019, the purse for the Kings Royals increased to what it is now, $175,000 to win, and the big cat, Brad Sweet, walked away with the key to the vault. In 2022, Brett Marks would leave Eldora after Kings Royal Week $275,000 richer. Brett Marks dominated that week. He won the return of the historical big one for $100,000, and he also won the Kings Royal for $175,000. This year, 2024, will mark the 41st running of the Kings Royal at Eldora. We know we're going to be there. We got our tickets. We hope you guys are going to be there too. And in the coming weeks and months leading up to the Kings Royal, we're going to have more content for you regarding what we do, maybe some suggestions on seating and things to do in and around the track. So looking forward to that. Series, teams, drivers, tracks, and dirt media. If you got news you want to get out, hit me up. Like I always say, send me a DM on X at Dirt Court Jester. And remember, the spotlight is always on.
I drank a beer. I drank another beer. 3 beers. 4 beers.
Oh no.
5 beers.
Oh
6 beers. 7 beers. 8 beers. 9 beers.
Looking forward to racing this week. March 22nd, the Lucas Oil late models are going to visit Atomic in Ohio. 410s, late models, and 305s will run at Attico Raceway Park in Ohio. And just a side note, guys, if you want to check out OhioDirtTrackStats.com, the guy's great at keeping up with schedules, specifically about Ohio dirt track racing. Go there, check out the schedule. You know, when they're racing, who's racing where. Awesome site. Check it out. Also on March 22nd, World of Outlaw late models will be at Thunderhill Raceway in Tennessee, and the World of Outlaw sprint cars will be at Big O Speedway in Texas on March 23rd. The Lucas Oil late models will be at Brownstown in Indiana. The World of Outlaw late models will again be at Thunderhill in Tennessee, and the World of Outlaw sprint cars are going back to try and get it in at Kennedale Speedway in Texas. Hit up our YouTube channel, same as the X, at Dirt Court Jester. We've got a new interview up with Ryan Barr. Awesome to talk to Ryan. Really cool interview. Guy was just friendly and willing to talk and answer even the silly questions we had. You can listen about how Ryan used to try to dress up like John Cena. Great interview. Check it out. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode for the Dirt Court Jester podcast. Thanks for listening and helping us build this one lap at a time.
Goodbye. Mwah, and good night, bang.
Thanks for listening to the Dirt Court Jesters podcast. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a shout out. Let your friends know on X and YouTube as well at Dirt Court Jester. And we hope to see you guys at the track.